All right, wonderful. Welcome, everybody. I'm Eric Noonan, CEO of Cybersheet Services International. I'm here with Carl Herberger, Vice President of Security Services. We are not yet back in the office, but we are coordinating wardrobes for this coffee talk. So we have a lot to talk about today, and I'm thrilled to be joined with Carl to talk about something that's on everyone's mind today, right? Executive order, zero trust. I mean, that's all we're hearing about, Carl. How should
Yeah,
we think about it?
yeah, that's right. There's been so much movement since the Biden administration has taken over on supply chain security, including the executive order, and a lot of movement around CMMC. Eric, and I thought what we would do is just kind of weigh in on it, get a good flavor for what we feel is going on, and I'd love to pick your brain on your feelings on this. So maybe we just dive right in. The executive order, actually a lot in there, right? Love your opinion on if you were surprised by anything, if you had things that in you're like, wow, that was pretty impressive, or other things such as, I wish we would have taken the opportunity to do something more. What's your
Yeah.
thoughts?
No, I think that's a great way to frame it. So I guess at a high level, the first thing that surprised me was how specific it was. Now, what's great about the specificity is there's a lot of very specific milestones. I mean, it effectively said the entire federal government will have one standard for cybersecurity within 120 days. That's literally what it said. And if you look the next day, the Wall Street Journal came out, and I have a quote here. And the Wall Street Journal came out and read the same way I did. I had to read it a couple times to make sure I was understanding it. And they said contractors that fail to comply with this baseline standards would essentially be prohibited from selling their products to the federal government, a black mark that could be crippling to a company's commercial viability as well. So if I had to take anything away from the executive order, it's the fact that it's going to take the patchwork of inconsistent and unenforced cybersecurity regulations and come up with one government-wide set of standards. Now, if I had to take the other side of that coin, I'd say that's very aspirational. I hope it happens, but I thought it's a wonderful objective. What do you think?
Yeah, I 100% agree. I read the executive order trying to be, let's say, a CISO from the different agencies, a CISO for the Department of Homeland Security, maybe the Department of Interior, maybe some of the other departments such as Health and Human Services. And in reading it, and not being necessarily an expert in all those, but definitely understanding the DoD, it seemed to me that the DoD has got a large foot forward on a lot of these initiatives. I get the impression that the DoD not only has begun, but is well underway on almost every point being made, including zero trust and this notion on incident response, and of course supply chain security. And love your feelings on that. But I think if I'm Health and Human Services, I think that feels like a very long bridge from where I sit right now.
Yeah, I think no doubt. I mean, you're right. Department of Defense is way out in ahead. They've been working with their supply chain for years, really well over a decade now. So I think that, the DoD versus HHS, two very different current states in terms of where they're starting from. And so I think it could be a big mountain to climb for some agencies, which actually leads me to a question that I get all the time. I'm sure you get it too. So we had SolarWinds. We had the Microsoft Exchange attack earlier this year. We've had this executive order. We had the Colonial breaches, just bombarded with news. So if you're a defense contractor, what's more important? Kind of all the news, the executive order, DFARS, CMMC 7012, what's more important?
I think that revenue is the most important part when you're dealing with business. I don't know how you feel, Eric, but my feeling is that if you don't have that lifeblood of revenue coming into the business, it's very hard to solve your problems, right? So there's that old adage that sales solves literally everything in business, right? And I believe in that adage. The thing that's pretty impressive to me in the executive order, and moreover where we're going with CMMC, is that it is revenue based, right? And we all know this now, but it's very serious and it's clear, and we're getting it across the board that the DoD no longer is allowing you to have revenue if you don't take this seriously. And that means be certified or really be moving towards certification. If the whole government's moving in that area, which I read the executive order, at least on supply chain security, to be going in this direction, whether it be CMMC or something that's very similar to CMMC, I believe it's going in that order. So what I take out of it as the idea for businesses is that was yesterday in terms of the way of thinking about security, and tomorrow, in other words, this year is really a watershed event that you need to step into the idea that this isn't a policing action. This is an action that you need prerequisites for in order to get to having a business. It's like understanding that you need to pay taxes. There's no questions about that, right? It's like understanding that you need to obey certain laws on employee relations and on giving adequacy for minimum wages and so forth. Now security has had its comeuppance, and that's how I'm seeing all of this actions. You know, you can see the threat, you can see the energy, and you can see the rulemaking. And if that doesn't come together for you, I'm not sure anything else will.
Yeah, I think, you really hit the nail on the head, and I think it's great advice, and I hope everyone takes it away. When cybersecurity, one of the challenges, I think, for cybersecurity professionals is explaining the value, importance, how do you measure it? But the way you measure it ultimately is in business terms, and business thinks in terms of revenue. So if I were a CISO still and I was sitting in that seat, I would take all this noise and put it almost through a funnel, right? And what comes out of the bottom of the funnel is what's going to get in the way of my business's revenue. And if you're a defense contractor, NIST 800-171, DFARS 7012, and CMMC are going to get in the way of your revenue. So that's where you should start. That's a business conversation. That's going to make you a CISO that can have a conversation with the business instead of a CISO who's running around talking about the latest attack, which is interesting, but business leaders want to hear about why they need to go do things. And you're blessed or cursed, depending on how you look at it. If you're a defense contractor, you have black and white written actionable regulations that tell you what you need to go do, why, and by when.
That's right. That's right. Now, lumber prices are increasing, and there's a lot of inflation across the board, and a lot of requests across the board. I think security is another one of those areas that is being pushed on. Eric, I'd love to get your feeling on this, and I'm playing a little devil advocacy to you on this because I get it from our customer base or prospect base on the EO in particular. What's your feeling on an EO versus a DFARS requirement? Is one more important than the other? And this notion of an EO, an executive order, it's transient, isn't it? Like, should we consider it to be permanent? Should we consider it to be something that we should really take seriously? Because after all, when one president comes in, he sort of wipes the slate clean of all previous executive orders, and they start their own flavors of executive orders, right? I'd love you to opine on that.
Yeah, the way I think about it, Carl, it's like being out of shape, right? And wanting to run a marathon. It's a great objective. Let's start with the 5K. Let's start just walking. Let's just shut off Netflix and go for a walk. Then let's work up to the 5K. Then we get to the marathon. So I view the executive order, that's the marathon. That's nirvana. That's the holy grail. That's the strategic direction. And it could change. And not a lot if you're a private business. If you're not a government agency, there's not a lot that's actionable within that executive order for you as a private business. There's some direction setting stuff. There's some stuff you should pay attention to. It's definitely data points that should validate and be supportive of the direction you're heading. But the actionable thing, the 5K you should be going to run is the DFARS, right? So I would step back and say, again, DFARS 7012, NIST 800-171, it's been here since 2015, literally in contract clauses for 6 years now, was supposed to be implemented, if you're a contractor with that clause, no later than December 31st, 2017. So what I would say is, rather than kind of, again, going back to the diet analogy, saying, South Beach diet, Atkins, and jumping to the next fad, and worrying about the executive order, let me worry about the things that have actually been in my contracts for 5+ years, and let me go do that. And there's more permanency, I think, to the DFARS. Those clauses have been here for 6 years. What happens with this executive order? I have no idea. But I know that if you're a defense contractor and you're trying to be in a position to argue your way out of NIST 800, 171 or CMMC, you're probably putting yourself at a competitive disadvantage.
You know, I'm going to, so that's great commentary, and I'm going to do a shameless plug for our CMMC Con. If you haven't signed up for the CMMC Con 2021, it's in September, but we already have a fabulous set of people that are attending. And one of the major, and I'm sure it's going to be one of the highest attended sessions, is the discussion on the False Claims Act, where we actually have two people that are actually prosecuting a defense contractor for false claims under what you mentioned, a DFARS environment. And did you know, because I didn't, that the total compensation that you can be liable for, and I'm going to give you a little preview here for those people that are actually watch this session, is that it's for not only the full contract that you took, but the judge's hands are actually cuffed that if you're found fraudulent on your contract, that it'll be the fee will be the contract value, not your profit, but the value times 3, right?
Wow.
So if you have $1 billion contract and you're found fraudulent on that contract, it's not your profit on that contract, it's the value of the contract times 3. So you will have to walk away with $3 billion in cost. So to your point on the EO versus DFARS, I agree 100%. DFARS is law. It's the law of the land. The only thing that can change it is Congress, not a presidential whim or interest and so forth. And DFARS is very, very biting. It's something that's really something to pay attention to. I hope there's not another false claim out there, but we all know that this is a scenario that's been wrought with false claims.
Yeah, and I think that's a great way to kind of wrap this session in terms of letting people know about CMMC Con 2021. I'm glad you brought it up. It is in September. We do have an incredible slate of speakers there. And you're going to hear a lot about, and one of the things I love about doing CMMC Con every year is it's refreshing to realize, even though everything changes, I mentioned it, right? Colonial, SolarWinds, the Microsoft on-prem exchange attack, the executive order, all this noise, you know, CMMC Con is kind of the calm in the storm. It's like everything changed, but nothing really changed. Let's go back to the DFARS and the basics, and let's get basic cybersecurity hygiene implemented.
Yeah, what I'm really excited about is the final rule is estimated to come out at the same time of our CMMC Con, right? So the cool thing is that I think we can go right from the rule to a nice, strong conversation, and it should be a nice place to reserve your seat to become fully understood and beefed up on how is CMMC going to finally be ruled. And I think that's going to be a wonderful chat.
Yeah, so go out to cmmccon2021.com to register. We just might have a very special guest who had, you know, a part within that final rule. We'll be announcing guests from here over the next few months in terms of keynote speakers and special guests and panels, and there's going to be a lot of content there. So Carl, thanks for joining me today, and I hope this was useful content for everybody. Thanks, everyone.
Take care now. Bye-bye.